We often look to the past to understand ourselves. Tonight, we turn our attention to the year 1916 and the solemn story of Grigori Rasputin. It's a case that reminds us that behind historical records are real people, whose lives were irrevocably changed by the events that transpired. This is their story, as best as it can be told. In the depths of winter in 1916, the Russian capital of Petrograd was a city on the edge. The nation was mired in the catastrophic slaughter of the First World War, and the centuries-old Romanov dynasty was teetering on the brink of collapse. At the heart of this political and social storm stood one of the most enigmatic figures in modern history, Grigori Yefimovich Rasputin. To some, he was a holy man, a healer, and a confidant to the Empress herself. To others, he was a debauched charlatan, a demonic puppet master whose influence was driving the Russian Empire to ruin. His life was a whirlwind of contradiction, and his death would become a legend. Before he was the most controversial man in Russia, Grigori Rasputin was an obscure peasant from the vast wilderness of Siberia. Illiterate, but possessing a captivating presence and piercing eyes, he wandered the country as a stronach, or holy pilgrim. He developed a reputation as a mystic and a man of God, capable of offering spiritual guidance and healing. In 1905, this reputation brought him to St. Petersburg, and through a series of introductions into the most exclusive circle in the empire, the court of Tsar Nicholas II and Tsarina Alexandra. The key to his acceptance lay with the royal couple's only son, the Tsarevich Alexei. The young heir suffered from hemophilia, a genetic disorder that caused uncontrollable bleeding and constant, agonizing pain. When conventional doctors could do nothing, Rasputin, through prayer and a calming presence, seemed able to ease the boy's suffering. This apparent miracle earned him the Empress's absolute and unwavering devotion.
Rasputin's bond with Tsarina Alexandra became the foundation of his immense power. She saw him as a man sent by God to save her son, and by extension, the dynasty itself. When Tsar Nicholas II left the capital to assume command of the army at the front during World War I, Rasputin's influence grew exponentially. Through the Tsarina, his voice reached into the highest levels of government. Ministers were appointed and dismissed, allegedly on his advice. Military strategy was said to be influenced by his prophetic visions. Meanwhile, lurid rumors swirled around him. Stories of drunken orgies, financial corruption, and his hypnotic control over women of high society scandalized the public. Whether true, exaggerated, or entirely false, these stories painted the picture of a decadent and rotting regime with a Siberian peasant as the shadow behind the throne. To a powerful segment of the Russian aristocracy, Rasputin was not just an embarrassment, he was a mortal threat to the nation. They believed his influence over the Tsarina was disastrous, weakening the war effort and discrediting the monarchy in the eyes of the people. Patriotic Russians, including members of the royal family, came to believe that the only way to save Russia was to eliminate the Mad Monk. A conspiracy began to form, led by three prominent men. The ringleader was Prince Felix Yusupov, the fabulously wealthy heir to one of Russia's greatest fortunes and the husband of the Tsar's niece. He was joined by the Tsar's own cousin, Grand Duke Dmitry Pavlovich, whose involvement lent the plot a veneer of royal sanction. The third key figure was Vladimir Purishkevich, a fiery, right-wing politician who had publicly denounced Rasputin as an agent of darkness. Their goal was simple: to commit an act of murder they believed was a patriotic duty.
The conspirators chose the opulent Moika Palace, Prince Yusupov's residence in Petrograd, as the stage for their plot. On the frigid night of December 29, 1916, they put their plan into motion. Rasputin was lured to the palace with a carefully crafted enticement, the promise of a meeting with Yusupov's famously beautiful wife, Princess Irina, who was conveniently away at the time. Rasputin was led not to the grand reception rooms, but to a cozy, specially prepared chamber in the basement. There, a gramophone played, and a table was laid with refreshments. The conspirators' chosen weapon was subtle and, they believed, untraceable. A plate of cakes and several glasses of Madeira wine had been laced with a massive quantity of potassium cyanide, a poison that should have been potent enough to kill several men almost instantly. What happened next in that basement room has become one of history's most enduring tales of murder, largely shaped by the dramatic and likely embellished account Prince Yusupov later published. According to Yusupov, Rasputin, seemingly without suspicion, ate several of the poisoned cakes and drank the poisoned wine. The conspirators waited for the poison to take effect, but to their astonishment and growing horror, nothing happened. Rasputin appeared unaffected, continuing to talk and enjoy the refreshments. As minutes stretched into hours, Yusupov's nerve began to fail. Excusing himself, he went upstairs to confer with his co-conspirators. They decided on a more direct approach. Yusupov returned to the basement, this time armed with a Browning pistol. He shot Rasputin in the chest at close range. The mystic collapsed to the floor, and the men, believing him dead, prepared to dispose of the body. The conspirators left the basement to finalize their plans. Sometime later, Prince Yusupov felt an urge to check on the body one last time. As he leaned over the prostrate form, he claimed that Rasputin's eyes suddenly snapped open. With a roar, the supposedly dead man leaped to his feet and attacked Yusupov, clawing at him before staggering up the stairs and out into the snowy palace courtyard. As Rasputin scrambled towards the outer gate, Vladimir Purishkevich, the politician, gave chase. He fired his own pistol several times, missing twice before striking Rasputin in the back and then, finally, in the head. The mad monk fell into the snow, at last, motionless. Taking no more chances, the conspirators brutally beat the body with a club before binding it, wrapping it in a heavy curtain, and driving it to the outskirts of the city. In the pre-dawn hours, the conspirators arrived at the Little Nivka River. They found a hole in the ice and pushed Rasputin's body into the freezing water below. Their work, they believed, was done. However, their carelessness quickly unraveled their plot. Police investigating reports of gunshots near the palace soon found evidence linking them to the crime. A few days later, Rasputin's body was discovered, frozen solid in the river. The official autopsy report told a different, less mythical story than Yusupov's. It found no trace of poison in Rasputin's stomach. The cause of death was determined to be the gunshot wound to the head. It also found no water in his lungs, indicating that he was already dead when he was thrown into the river. The legend of Rasputin's superhuman resistance to poison and drowning was likely just that, a legend. crafted to make the murder seem like the necessary killing of a demonic entity.
The identities of the murderers became an open secret in Petrograd almost immediately. Far from being condemned, Yusupov and his co-conspirators were hailed as heroes and patriots by the public and the aristocracy. They had, in the popular view, rid Russia of a corrupting evil. This put Tsar Nicholas II in an impossible position. To let the murder of his wife's closest confidant go unpunished would be a sign of profound weakness. Yet, to prosecute members of his own family and the conservative elite would risk a massive political backlash. In the end, he chose a middle path that satisfied no one. The conspirators were never put on trial. Prince Yusupov was exiled to his family's country estate, and Grand Duke Dmitry was sent to serve on the Persian front. These mild punishments were seen as a miscarriage of justice, further eroding what little authority and respect the Tsar had left.
The murder of Grigori Rasputin was intended to save the Romanov dynasty. In reality, it may have hastened its destruction. The act did not restore faith in the monarchy. Instead, it exposed the deep rot and internal conflict at the very heart of the imperial regime. The spectacle of nobles and royals resorting to murder and the Tsar's inability to deliver justice was the final proof for many that the entire system was broken beyond repair. Just weeks after Rasputin's body was pulled from the ice, the February Revolution erupted in the streets of Petrograd. The centuries-old rule of the Tsars came to a sudden and violent end. The conspirators had succeeded in killing the man, but they had failed to kill the chaos he represented. The death of the mystic did not save the empire. It was merely the prologue to its final, bloody collapse. Thank you for spending this time with us. Reflecting on these past events is a way of remembering the individuals involved and the impact their stories had on their communities. If you have any thoughts on today's case, we invite you to share them respectfully in the comments below. We hope you will join us again for our next true crime case.